President Trump's State of the Union address to Congress last night broke his own record for longest speech. He spoke for an hour and 47 minutes, yet only spent around 3 minutes speaking about Iran. Let's go to Emma Withrow from the Fact Check team. And I know that you spent the day pouring into and delving into those 3 minutes, roughly. The U.S. military, we know, has the largest show of military firepower off the coast of the Middle East since, I believe, 2003. Tell us more about the president's comments last night.
Sure.
Put that in perspective for us.
Yeah, absolutely. So President Trump basically said that Iran is still a serious threat, and he warned that they're trying to rebuild their nuclear program and missile capabilities. He also reminded people that the U.S. has already taken action against Iranian sites, but the job isn't finished, is what he said. And while Trump said he'd prefer a diplomatic deal, he made it clear that the U.S. would use force if Iran moves toward getting a nuclear weapon.
Yeah, giving a warning last night. If we look at the worst case scenarios, walk us through the potential players who could get brought in.
So from my understanding, a war with Iran wouldn't just be the U.S. versus Iran. Israel would almost certainly be directly involved, and countries like the U.K. and some Gulf states could potentially help with bases, logistics, or defense support. Iran, in turn, though, would rely heavily on its regional allies and proxy groups. Those are like Hezbollah, we're talking about Hezbollah here, militias in Iraq and Syria, and also the Houthis, which could spread fighting across the Middle East in different areas. Russia and China most likely wouldn't fight directly, but they could back Iran politically or economically, meaning the conflict would likely become a pretty broad regional war with global ripple effects.
Yeah, Emma, thank you. A little later on, Emma will be back to dig deeper into the potential scale of a war with Iran and what wars of this magnitude look like in years past. U.S. envoy Steve Witkoff and President Trump's son-in-law Jared Kushner are set to meet with the Iranian delegation for negotiations in Geneva. This comes as the U.S. military has put together a show of force off the coast of the Middle East ahead of potential strikes in Iran. Let's go to Emma Withrow from the Fact Check team. And the world was watching here, Emma. The last time the U.S. struck Iran, it was targeted. We were talking brief strikes. What are analysts expecting here?
So different analysts have different perspectives, but Max Boot, who's a foreign policy analyst, he wrote a really interesting piece that was published by the Council on Foreign Relations, and he essentially argues the U.S. military is quietly signaling that a war with Iran could be a lot longer and a lot riskier than President Trump seems to think. He warns that Iran still has enough short-range and anti-ship missiles to hit U.S. bases and some of that Gulf oil infrastructure, which could spike global oil prices. Boot also stresses in this piece that a sustained campaign could quickly drain U.S. precision weapons, strain some already stretched forces, and pull some resources away from other global threats that are happening, all without really any guarantee that Iran would give in or that the U.S. would have a clear way out of this whole thing.
And looking back, for many of us, when we think invasion of Middle East, Saddam Hussein comes to mind.
Yeah.
Which defining moments stand out to you?
So the last time that the U.S. launched a true full-scale invasion, like you said, in that Middle East region was in Iraq in 2003. When U.S. forces went in, they toppled Saddam Hussein. They occupied the country for years. Since 2003, the U.S. has still used force in the Middle East, like in the fight against ISIS in Iraq and Syria starting in 2014, airstrikes in Yemen, and also there was those targeted operations against Iran-backed groups that happened. But those really haven't been full-scale invasions or formally declared wars. And just to put things into perspective here, to remind everyone, estimates from the Brown University's Cost of War say the Iraq War cost the U.S. more than $2 trillion, killed over 4,400 American troops, and wounded around 32,000. Also, it contributed to hundreds of thousands of Iraqi deaths. So devastating conflict. Obviously, no one wants to see something like that happen again.
Emma, thank you. Very true. And for more on this Fact Check team topic, including links to their sources, scan the QR code or visit thenationaldesk.com.